Good morning, PT on Ice Daily Show. I'm going to hope that Instagram and Facebook are up and running live. And I just saw one wave on Instagram. Good sign. You can see my face. You can see my coffee mug. I'm Dr. Lindsay Huey. I am coming to you from Bear, Delaware, actually in my CrossFit gym, Bear Fitness. I have a clinic here, Drive PT, and I am the lead faculty member for extremity management along with Eric Ciccone. So I'm delighted to be here on Clinical Tuesday and share some tips. Today's Clinical Tuesday comes with lots of echo and sounds because I am in the gym, but I needed to be here for all of the exercise variety we're going to explore today. So today we will be talking about building upper quarter capacity and thinking about whether we use open kinetic chain versus closed kinetic chain in our rehab prescriptions for the upper quarter. But before we dive in, there are so many live courses coming up and it's so exciting. So we have lumbar spine management in Wisconsin coming up, total spine thrust this weekend in Maryland, and then cervical spine management in Washington. So there are still some spots left for all those courses, so please check out PT on Ice if you're interested in jumping in last minute. I myself will be at Total Spine Thrust with Dr. Justin Dunaway, and I couldn't be more pumped for that course and to be with him and to hang out with Morgan in person. We get excited as faculty taking each other's courses too. It's so awesome. So I hope I will see some of your faces and meet you, Ice family and crew that are listening. So let's dive into the topic for today. So I mentioned upper quarter capacity. So when you come to the extremity management course, we talk a lot about how to measure upper quarter capacity. And we do that in one of three ways, some gross tests that exist. So the wide balance test is a way to measure balance and stability of the upper quarter. There's also the Davies test where it's for 15 seconds, lateral taps back and forth. And then most recently, JAMA in 2000, Open Network in 2019 did a study on the correlation with being able to do 40 push-ups and how that likened to decreased cardiovascular events in the long term. So they followed for 10 years. They started in healthy subjects. 40 men were studied, firefighters specifically, and those that could do those 40 push-ups had a 96% less risk of having any cardiovascular disease compared to people that could do 10 or less. And so if you think about these three kind of capacity tests, yes, they're all done in healthy subjects, and so there's some bias there, right? If someone's coming to see us as physical therapists or physical therapy assistants or healthcare providers, they're in pain, there's something wrong with their upper quarter, whether it's shoulder, elbow, wrist, or hand. And so we have to take what we know about these healthy population and studies and then apply it to our patients that are having difficulty. And so the reason I bring up those three capacity tests that we use and talk about is they're all in that plank position or quadruped position. So it's where the whole kinetic chain, hand, wrist, elbow, shoulder, are interacting with the ground. And so that's that closed kinetic chain. And what's interesting is all our capacity tests are in that closed kinetic chain, but often our rehab tends to be in that open kinetic chain. So what I want to do is just back up a little bit and compare and contrast open kinetic chain versus closed kinetic chain because each have their benefits. And so we're going to go back to biomechanics and think about when we're doing open kinetic chain, it's usually just one joint and one joint access that we're challenging versus closed kinetic chain, it's multiple joints. And then planes of motion. When we're doing open kinetic chain, it's usually a joint is fixed and then moving in one plane of motion versus, again, comparing to closed kinetic chain, you are moving in multiple planes of motion and you're challenging all those joints to activate. In addition, musculature in that closed kinetic chain is activating. There's lots of co-contraction compared to open kinetic chain. We're really trying to isolate one muscle at one time. Thinking about like when we use TheraBand and we're doing our external rotation, right? We're really just trying to isolate that posterior cuff. Often, open kinetic chain is a little less functional. It's a little easier compared to that closed kinetic chain exercise. And so what's interesting though is that our capacity tests though are closed kinetic chain, and when we're thinking about our upper quarter, you actually need that open kinetic chain freedom of motion to reach, right? The lower extremity, it's more functional, be in closed kinetic chain. So we're at like this crossroads where it's like, what is best? Which one do you choose when you're rehabbing the upper quarter? If our capacity tests are all closed chain and some of our patients can't really tolerate that, what do we do? And this is ICE Physio, so you know our and, not or mentality. And so it should always be both, in my opinion, and in my experience and clinical practice, whether it's from pediatrics all the way to geriatrics, and in between those high-level overhead athletes or CrossFit athletes, they can all benefit from both. So we don't have to choose either one, but I want to show you my favorite way to actually do both at the same time versus isolating an open kinetic chain exercise and a closed kinetic chain exercise. I like to do them both at the same time. And I think that primary position that we get in eventually, but we don't get in early enough, is that quadruped position. And whether it's on hands and knees or just more in that half plank position or modified plank or plank position, there's areas for opportunity to incorporate this, again, all along the lifespan. So when you come to extremity management, I want you always thinking, and when I talk and I teach my students, like always think across the lifespan of how you can use this. So my hope and my plan for today is to show you how I use this clinically and show you some variety and variation to establish upper quarter capacity. So not only strength, but stability, balance, ways to help challenge those mechanoreceptors in the joint and in the tissues. And so we're going to get to work and I'm going to show you, and hopefully my camera angles are on point here. But we're going to go from kind of hardest challenge to easiest. And I will describe these because I know some people are just listening and some are not watching. And just wave me down Instagram if it doesn't look clear. I'm looking and I think I see she is beautiful. If you're still there, give me a wave if this doesn't look clear. But that quadruped position, let's just start here. And I want you to think about, we're here in this quadruped. I'm getting joint nutrition and compression not only through the shoulder. I need to actually tilt the camera a little bit. There we go. You knew something was going to go crazy with the camera. Until I get a professional crew, this is always going to happen, Alan, sorry. So we'll start here. And what I want to show you is my most favorite and hardest. So being in a plank position, and then starting to incorporate movement in the open kinetic chain at the same time. So my most challenging position would be in plank, and then reach up and do your Y, do your T, do your I. So all stability and strength starts from that center, proximal to distal. And I see my CrossFit athletes crumble with exercises like this, and I find they get that open kinetic chain control and capacity faster when you get them into this all four position. So I'm just going to show you different variations, but think about how you can always challenge a patient. So that's the start. If that was too easy for a patient, you can go with an unstable surface, right? So we change our surface and we can come here and do the same thing. Y, T, I. So we're working on cuff musculature. We're working on scapulothoracic activation. You can use your BOSU that you PTs love to use, but I think we underdose when we use this a lot. Why not add in some perturbation as the therapist while they hold? I think we just stay here and we keep it closed kinetic chain, but why not try to get the patient more center and add in, oh, watch me fall, this will be fine, but add in like a little reaching forward, a little slide to the side and back. And the other beautiful thing about the quadruped position or all four position is you're activating midline. You're challenging the CNS and the brain to really think about the movement. And so often these reps are a lot less. We're not necessarily getting into that 12 to 15, we're more in that 6 to 8 and doing more sets. The other thing besides changing your surfaces, and I'm going to show you how you can make this easier, another surface you could change is maybe adding in rings. So for that higher level athlete, that needs a lot of dynamic stability and is doing ring work, you can do that scapulothoracic strengthening and activation on the rings. So that looks like, and yes, I made them higher because I'm really sorry from doing push-ups yesterday, but you could make this more difficult by bringing the rings down lower. But you start in this plank position, and then again, you can do your Y, your T, your I. What if you're just looking at me like, Lindsay, you're crazy, like I'm never gonna do that with any patient. That's ridiculous. Well, think about if you have a higher surface. I do this with, most recently, a patient that's 69, that has some scapulothoracic weakness. He loves doing the quadruped exercises, but we do it from a raised surface. So I can do that same progression. I'm in a plank, I can Y, I can T, I can I, and if range of motion is an issue right now still, you can go lower. You can do slides, right? And you can alternate that. You can actually just work on taps for coordination, and you as the therapist can add some variety in by saying right, left, left, right. So they also have to work on coordination and just attention of focus. Those same surfaces that I showed you down low, you can use here. And so I think the beauty of being a physical therapist is that exercise exploration and movement exploration, and each individual patient is going to have different abilities. But if you can think outside the box and think about ways to make them successful, they will be successful and they'll have fun doing it. The other thing we can do is add a band, right? So add some band resistance. So I'm in that closed kinetic chain, but then I'm also working on lifting. So I can add a band and be here. And all I'm doing is I have a loop band around my arms and I'm leaning on a table. For those that are just listening, you should go back and view the video just so you can see some of these exercise varieties. And then I can switch my arm. We often find asymmetry, so if someone's coming to you for their right shoulder, they often have deficits in their grip strength and that other side too, and in scapulothoracic stability and control. So challenging both sides is really important when we're thinking about overall capacity, like that review I gave in the beginning, when we're thinking about the Y balance test or the Davies or the push-up test. These are things that can be scaled along the lifespan. Like even thinking about a little kid, you can be in quadruped and playing with a ball and tossing a ball to them back and forth. There's so many things you can do in this position, and if you do it sooner, patients get better faster. They get that freedom of movement in that open kinetic chain faster. And so I just wanted to share some of this movement variety that I love and that I really see affecting all populations, no matter their age, and being of benefit. So this is just an encouragement to think about varying your surface, think about varying even your speed and your rest times, but always do both at the same time if you can. There's one other favorite that I have, and especially for people that tuned in recently to the Vice with Mitch, and he talked about building like resilient shoulders. You can incorporate that flexion, abduction, ER combo in a closed kinetic chain position as well. So you can be in a side plank, have your plate, and you can do all those regular open kinetic chain isolated movements, all while getting some weight bearing or closed kinetic chain firing as well, to fire that midline and then get those scapulothoracic musculature firing like they should. So please share with me on Facebook if you want your favorite combo of open kinetic chain, closed kinetic chain, and always be thinking and not or. I hope that you have beautiful Tuesdays. Thanks for your time this morning. Have a great day. I see lots of waves. I like the waves.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.